Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a question about the wells that you guys closed. Can you talk about the process by which you kind of like let the residents know that you were closing it, or if you went to the owner to...
So we didn't technically close most of them. A lot of them, when they saw that we found it, they just closed it. So in terms of the municipal ones, like 70 was the cutoff that we were using that we have kind of at a regulatory level, and only Oakland was above 70. And in that case, I think DEM came in and actually provided bottled water. That wasn't RIDO, that was DEM, because they were able to identify that it was related to a spill, and so it was under their authority. Did you agree?
Yeah, I just wanted to, it was 2 or so years ago, or maybe 3 now, that Burrillville happened, and when it did happen, there is a requirement that the water system go door to door and make it known. When there's remediation efforts, they have to contact the folks that they serve. So that's part of the process. Whenever there's a contaminant in water, that the water system has to notify the people it serves.
Typically, it's a letter, I think.
Okay, letter, and then possible door to door. We can make them go door to door if we want.
Are there any other questions? Sarah Valverde.
You might have already answered this, but what is the timeline for testing the rest of the 13% of wells?
So most of the rest of the 13% is private drinking water, and so there's the 50% that are community water supplies that aren't already tested. They're the ones we think are less likely to have problems, but once our regulation is in effect, they would be required to test as well. We don't have a specific timeline for that yet, but we've said that we'll have everything, during the House hearing, we said we'd have everything out and published and the drafts done by May 15th, and we're pretty confident we'll be able to have a final regulation passed by the end of summer, but in terms of how it'll roll out, like how much time we'll give people, I think those details we still need to iron out, so we don't know specifically. In terms of private wells, we don't regulate them. Usually it's the responsibility of homeowners to make sure their wells are safe, and so we've tested, I believe, 98% of people who get their water from a cellar, like of people who buy water. The remaining, most of the water that hasn't been tested so far is private wells, and typically that is the responsibility of the homeowner to test rather than we wouldn't require it or be able to afford to do it for everyone's individual home.
Is there any resources with DOH for private well owners to have their water tested?
They have the capacity to do it, but they would be at their expense. Yeah. So I believe I think it's around I think it is $250 to do it. I believe that so the lab would be better able to answer those questions, but I believe that anyone can get their water, but I'm not 100% sure what the process is for that.
Okay.
But.
Are there any other questions? I have a couple of questions. So it sounds like we're looking at the rules being promulgated May 15th. Is that what your target is? And if so,
that wouldn't be promulgation. I think that would be
Of the draft.
Of the draft regulations, and then it would need to go through public comment. And that there's a 30-day public comment window. If it's we also would like to put it out for advance notice of public rulemaking too, which is a kind of an advanced process by which we can receive feedback. So we're trying, we're pretty confident that May 15th we'll have at least the draft regulation to start going through the regulation approval process.
and so will the advanced promulgation, the advance of the rules be the point in which the experts from the advocacy community will be engaged in the process?
Yes, and during the regulatory process too, there's always, there's multiple options we have through the regulatory process. We can put out multiple rules at once, so we could put out, different MCLs for different consideration. We can also take a rule back at any time to tweak it based off of feedback. Or there's also the opportunity through logical, I think in the statutes, logical growth based off of comment, to go forward with a rule based off of a comment we received in that current round. So we don't necessarily, there is a lot of opportunity to amend a rule once we put forward our initial suggestions and our findings.
Also, in terms of experts from the community, like we are working with Dr. Slitt, and we have, like, in terms of the experts at URI and at Brown, we have reached out to them to get advice. So we're working with scientific experts in Rhode Island, which include the ones that are supportive of this sort of.
Great, thank you. Anything else?